and welcome to a new video. Today we're going to take a look at the new Shadow Pokemon that are going to come into Pokemon Go with the upcoming event. I said already before, if we had the like goal in the last video, I would do a more like in-depth variant for the Shadow Pokemon, which we of course hit. So let's take a look now at the Shadow Pokemon that are coming in. We're going to have the Shadow Regirock here, going to be only available through the Super Rocket Radar, which you're going to get one for free during this event. And then we have 5 that you're going to get through grunts, which are going to be the Alolan variant of a Geodude. You're going to have the Ledibar there, as well as the Hitmontop and the Glameo, as well as the Gible. For most people here, most likely Gible is going to be the most interesting, so that's going to be what we're going to take a look at last, but let's take a look first at the other ones. We're going to have Purugly first. Let's take a look at the Zero Shield scenario here. Always on top is going to be the non-Shadow variant, while the Shadow variant is going to be on the bottom. And as you're going to see here as well, the first and the second shared variant here, we're going to see that this Pokemon doesn't really get a lot of benefit from having the Shadow bonus. This Pokemon is pretty squishy still, it has a pretty okayish moveset. It still could maybe get pretty okayish in the future with the move Body Slam, which it could learn theoretically, I think, which would make this Pokemon way better, because then you would have Stab on it, and you have decent coverage, and you have Shadow Claw already. But until this would ever happen, this Pokemon will never be really decent. Even with Body Slam, it's still only going to be like mid-tier. So right now, while this is going to be available, this might be something that you just want to keep and maybe not really use. But we're going to have, of course, now the Ledian coming up. For Ledian, it's a little bit different. The perfect IVs are 13, 15, 15, which is going to be nearly a 100% variant. As you're going to see in the 0, 1, and 2 shield scenario, we're going to see that the difference is a little bit towards the Shadow variant, but it's not that crazy. But especially in the 2 shield scenario, the Shadow Bug Bite is doing quite a lot of damage, which really helps this Pokemon out here. There is a breakpoint with the fast move Bug Bite if you would get a 15, 13, 14 variant as a Shadow. But honestly, this Pokemon still kinda needs some kind of a buff for this to be really meta. Dynamic Punch got added recently to this Pokemon, which is pretty decent for it. Gives it nice coverage against the hardest answers like Rock types as well as Steel type Pokemon or even Ice type Pokemon. All of them would be decent against you usually, so Dynamic Punch is very decent for it. But either Bug Bite needs a buff or you need another fast charge move there. And sadly, it doesn't really learn any decent flying type charge move as far as I can see. I researched it a little bit, but it didn't really seem to be that crazy good, so it's most likely a lower priority. It's very expensive to build, you need a fully XL variant of it, and for that you don't really get the best value of this Pokemon, so most likely something that you don't really want to get. Next Pokemon though, we're going to have the Hitmontop. We're going to have this here for the Great League as well as for the Ultra League. It's not really a big buff for this Pokemon here, as you're going to see. Differences are not that crazy, more even towards the normal variant compared to the Shadow variant here, as you can see. The extra bulk really kind of helps. There are no really important breakpoints when I went through like the top Pokemon or whatever that which it beats and what it doesn't beat. Usually you don't beat the stuff that beats you typing wise, which is just happening quite a bit, like something for example a Sableye or a Deoxys or a Medicham. Those Pokemon you will not be able to beat anyway with like a break or a bulk point. So there was not a lot that I at least saw which really would help this Pokemon out here. Did also some more calculations, but yeah, again, this does seem to be a more like, I don't know, more good thing to have, but it's not going to be as crazy. But maybe someday Niantic gives this Pokemon another charge move, because then it might be even better. At least right now it doesn't really seem to be the best Pokemon ever, so definitely something that you can still store, but it's not really something that you need. Let's take a look at the Pokemon in the Ultra League though. And here it's more like a side grade. The thing is, there are no IVs that you really have to think about. You need a 100% variant for the Open Ultra League. As you're going to see here right now, the Shadow variant can do a little bit better in some certain scenarios, especially the 2 shield scenario where you're going to just be able to do a little bit more damage, but you have the same amount of wins and losses here. You see an average that's going to be a little bit better for you. But in general, again, this is not really worth it. Like, honestly, I think a normal variant, like a normal non-Shadow variant, might be a little bit better for you. Here you see also the 1 shield scenario. It's clear for the non-Shadow variant of the Hitmontop in the Ultra League. So this definitely should be something that you don't really need. It's more like a side grade and doesn't really help you. So far so bad, but I started basically with those Pokemon that usually most likely don't really get too much of a buff. For Alolan Graveler, you see here already, it's going to be a little bit different. There are some more winning matchups with this Pokemon if you have it as a Shadow variant for the Open Great League. You run a moveset of Volt Switch, Stone Edge, and Rock Blast here, which is the most common one, preferred one. And as you're going to see here right now, It doesn't seem to be that crazy for the Shadow variant, but the matchups that you're actually going to win compared to the matchups that you're going to lose are kind of nice. For example, here, you see already on the side, you can now win the 2 shields against Sticky Tongue, Registeel, Sableye, even a Registeel, even though you don't have a charge move that's going to be super effective or neutral even against them. You still have a chance against it, as well as you're going to be able to now beat Azumarill, Lantern, as well as the Kaiwei in the 1-shield scenario. There are even some decent one in the 0-shield scenario, but there are also some that you're going to lose that are most likely not as good for you. For example, against Umbreon in the 0 and the 1-shield scenario, you're not going to be as good with the Shadow variant compared to the normal variant. So again, this is going to be something that you definitely want more than the other Pokemon that I showcased previously there. But it's going to be not something that you really need to have, but it's something good to have. Like, this is definitely something you should try to grind, as this also is, of course, the other option of going into a Golem here. And as you're going to see here, it's maybe a little bit better than the than the normal variant, but it's not going to be crazy, especially in the 2-shield scenario. Seems like you're going to lose a little bit more there. You have a different moveset here compared to the Graveler adjustment, always with a standard PvP poke moveset here, which is going to be Wild Charge and Rock Blast. But unlike Graveler, I went through the matchups that you're going to win and that you're going to lose compared to the other variants, and it's not really that interesting. Like, the Pokemon that you're going to beat there are like Pokemon that you rarely really see. So I don't really think that this is going to be too interesting for the Great League. I would rather go for Graveler most likely, to be fair. Like, the coverage I think is pretty much the same. But Golem at least seems to be a little bit struggling here. The thing is, where the Shadow variant can be pretty decent is for certain restricted metas where you might want to run the Rock Throw fast move, which you can have on this Pokemon as well. So for those, it might actually do meta a little bit more with the Shadow variant, but right now at least, the Graveler seems to be a little bit better for the Alolan Golem in the, Ultra League. In general, this Pokemon is more something that you run in limited metas compared to like normal ones. And if you run the normal ones, it looks like here that the normal variant without the Shadow bonus seems to be way much better there, especially if you look at the 0-shield scenario. You just survive more moves. Like, in general, Ultra League is even more around Bull compared to the Great League, so like having something more squishy here can be a little bit tricky if you don't have something super spammy that does a lot of damage, doesn't really debuff you. Because, like, for example, a Swampert does work as a Shadow variant, but something like this doesn't seem to be as crazy good, but also not that bad. So it's, again, something that you can have, but you don't really need to have. Taking a look now at the Regirock, we're going to see here that this Pokemon is having a little bit more of a better time. To be fair, this Pokemon has access now to, of course, the Shadow variant as well. You need to use your Super Rocket Radar, but unlike the Regice and Registeel, this Pokemon gets like a side grade. It's not a clear upgrade, but the matchups that you're going to win can be really crucial compared to, for example, the Shadow Pokemon that you saw prior. Because now you can flip the matchup against Registeel in the 1-shield scenario. You're always going to win the 1 and the 2-shield scenario against Registeel. They can't even do really anything against that, because you can just go straight Focus Blast. You're going to outspeed them. You're going to have more attack than a Registeel, so you're going to be able to do more damage against them anyway. So that's going to be definitely very good for you for that one. And also against Galarian's G-Fist, you're now going to be able to win the 1 and the 2-shield scenario, which is really good there. Galarian G-Fist is, by the way, like double, like Galarian Stunfisk. But yeah, for example, this is going to be very nice, but you're going to lose a little bit of bulk, which is going to make you lose against the Alolan Sandslash as well as the Altaria in nearly all scenarios, which is kind of wild, to be fair. Altaria, you're going to still win the 2-shield scenario, but against Alolan Sandslash, you really get like a lot more losses if you have the Shadow variant, because before you can, I think, survive one Drill Run pretty easily, but if you're a Shadow, you cannot do that, especially not after a while. So this Pokemon definitely is interesting as a Shadow variant. I would recommend you to actually get one. But yeah, definitely if you are not as interested in this one, like, of course you can still skip it. It's not the craziest Pokemon ever. I'm not going to try to sell you something that's like basically just slightly better, but yeah. Unlike the other Regis, it's actually a little bit worth it compared to them for the Great League, because the extra damage output going to allow you to now knock out Registeel as well as Galarian Stunfisk, which is pretty important. But now we can take a look at the Ultra League variant of the Regirock here. And as you're going to see right now, it's a clear downgrade to have the Shadow variant, in my opinion. It's not something that you really want to have here, especially in the 2-shield scenario. You just, again, Ultra League is more about bulk, and Shadow variants are not as commonly seen anyway, just because it's not the craziest there. Like, there are some Shadow Pokemon, for example Warren, where I'm also not even clear if the normal one isn't better for the Ultra League. But, like, Ultra League itself is just a little bit more bulk, and you kind of want to have the extra bulk on the Regirock, as you don't really get anything that you know one-shot with that because of the extra damage output. You usually need 2-shot charge moves against everything anyway, because they're so bulky. So for this Pokemon, it doesn't really help it at all for the Ultra League. I wouldn't get one for the Ultra League. Keep yours for the Great League, please, and only get one then, because otherwise it wouldn't be really worth it. But yeah, that's going to be it for Regirock, and now we're going to go for the final Pokemon, which is going to be, of course, the Garchomp. Let's take a look first at the Master League. We're going to see the 0, 1, and 2-shield scenario again. We're going to have the moveset of Dragon Tail, the Sand Tomb, and Earth Power. Dragon Tail is the only way where the Shadow bonus does make any kind of sense, because with a Mud Shot, you don't have any damage output with it. And basically, for Shadow Pokemon, you have to have two things that really work for this. You either have to be a Pokemon that charges energy insanely fast and has super spammy charge moves like a Swampert, for example, with Hydro Cannon and Mud Shot, or you have to have a fast move that does a ton of damage and basically something to help with generating even more damage onto the opponent, for example Sand Tomb here, which you're going to have here with the Dragon Tail Sand Tomb moveset, and Earth Power to just one-shot those Steel types later on, which can help out a little bit more. You can also go for Outrage, but if you like Earth Power, might make a little bit more sense. But as you're going to see here, for this moveset itself, it might be a little bit better, but in general, this is not the moveset that you want to run in the open Master League. You want to run Mud Shot, you want to run Earth Power, maybe then Sand Tomb or the Outrage. Outrage most likely a little bit better. So, like, most likely a double nuke moveset with the Mud Shot. And for that reason, like, for the Master League, it doesn't really seem to be the best choice to go for the Shadow variant here, sadly. But this can be a little bit different for, of course, the Master League Premier variant here. As you're going to see right now, this Master League Premier variant going to be a little bit better here as the Shadow variant if you want to run it in Dragon Tail. Here's just the thing, if you just like to run a Garchomp with Dragon Tail in the Master League Premier Cup, this is definitely something that you can do. But again, I think Mud Shot might be a little bit preferred here, because Mud Shot going to allow you to be better against something like the Metagross, the Excadrill, like all those Pokemon that you kind of want to beat. And I feel like Dragon Tail is not really the best option for this Pokemon, as there are other better Dragon type fast move users like the Dragonite available, which has access to the move Superpower, which is just better in the meta right now. So I feel like if you want to run this, usually you run Mud Shot with it. But if you like, for example, a Garchomp you played before with Dragon Tail in the Master League Premier Cup, it's definitely better as a Shadow variant in my opinion. But again, it's not the craziest either. But look at the 2-shield scenario, for example, here it basically beats a lot of Pokemon, which is kind of nice to see. So it's definitely a decent Pokemon to have for that variant, but that's basically it for that. That's also going to be it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like. You can go through the Pokemon real quick here again. Regirock, please get for Great League. Very interesting Pokemon to have, a very decent side grade. We're going to have the Alolan Geodude, which is pretty okayish for Ultra League Special Cups, for the Golem, and for Great League Graveler definitely gets some kind of benefit from it, while Golem is also the same kind of okayish, but not the best. Then we're going to have the Ladybug that really needs to get an upgrade, either with a fast move or another charge move before it can shine anyway. But if you're going to get an upgrade with that one, it's still going to have Bug Bite, the Shadow variant, going to be better. The Hitmontop is not really going to look too crazy good as a Shadow variant. I wouldn't really go too much for that one. While Shadow Counter is of course pretty nice, you don't really have the craziest coverage with this Pokemon, you don't really have the craziest stats with this Pokemon. So it's most likely not going to be the best one. Purugly is just waiting for at least one move update, maybe even 2 move updates that it needs to get any kind of usage. And then we're going to have the Garchomp, which is going to be pretty decent for the Master League Premier Cup, but not so much for the Open Master League. That's going to be it, my analysis here for these Pokemon. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please leave a like and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.